Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Stat Geek. This is Dave Schofield, Deputy Editor of Behind the Steel Curtain, coming at you for yet another episode so we can talk about some of these numbers associated with this fantastic win from last night. I don't know about anyone else, but it just feels like a different day when it's the day after a Steelers win. I don't know about anyone else. So I was just making sure that we didn't have any problems with the video coming through. Had to make sure everything was good. I know we had a problem last week on the Steelers preview where we ran a good bit of the show, and here the video wasn't working. It ended up working later if you went back and caught it on YouTube. But it's good to see everyone. I don't know about anyone else. Did you catch the Steelers hangover earlier tonight? I sure did. If you missed it, go back and check that out. Brian and Tony had a great show. Brian took some shots at me. It's all right because he thought I was taking a shot at him because he brought up he was unaware that LJ Fort had signed with the Baltimore Ravens. And I just gave him a hard time because that was something that had come out the day before. But we know how it is on game day. Well, you all might not know as much, but behind the steel curtain on game day, things get crazy and hectic, and everything getting ready to be prepared for the game. So that's what happens around here sometime. But I'm ready to come here. Boy, isn't it nice to talk about some good numbers. So I see some people are filling into live chat. I'm going to go ahead and run some numbers. And before I turn it over to you all, I'm just going to throw out several different things. If you read the article this morning of the by the numbers that came out early this morning based on the game, it's all the same day, which we're not really used to because of this, because of Monday night. One thing you got to realize, I don't know if you all are fans of the night games or not. I know it was a late night for me. I know it was a very late night for Jeff Hardman, especially when the game ended by the time he's usually already done for the night. But this week is the only week out of a 4 game stretch where the Steelers do not play a night game because they were Monday night against Cincinnati last night. There will be 1 o'clock against the Ravens this coming week. Then they are Sunday night football against the I said San Diego again against the Los Angeles Chargers. Then they have a bye week, and then they're back on Monday Night Football against the Miami Dolphins. That's a game I will be at, or at least that is the plan right now. So let's talk some numbers. A few things I want to throw out there. I think the final number, at the exact number, I think might have been 29:48. It was really close. It was 29. I was close. 29:46. 29:46 was the time of possession that the Steelers had in the game last night. That is almost half the time. They were 14 seconds away. I will take that. That was great. They did have more of a time of possession. They did have the lead in that at halftime. Now in the second half, of course, they didn't mind at times letting Cincinnati take their time when they're trailing by 3 touchdowns and chewing up clock. That's fine. Let a team chew up clock when they're down by 3 scores. The other thing is when the Steelers turn around and have an 11-second drive because they put up a touchdown. So that was some nice numbers, but everyone's going to talk about it. I'm trying not to look in the live chat yet, but I had to see it. Cree brought it up here. I'll just bring it up on the screen. 8 sacks. That was a great number. 8 sacks, minus 69 yards, which meant that even though Andy Dalton threw for over 170 yards, technically the Bengals only had 102 yards passing because of all the minuses from the sacks. So, wow. So that's kind of one thing that if you look at the title of the show, we're talking about how the Steelers slowed down that air attack of the Cincinnati Bengals. And you're probably like, come on. What do you mean air attack by the Cincinnati Bengals? Going into the week, Andy Dalton was second in the league in passing. They had been, chucking the rock because they needed to because they hadn't won any games. So they hadn't been able to run the ball effectively. They were throwing it a lot, and the Steelers came out and said, nope. But let's look at how that attack went down. First of all, you got the 8 sacks. I heard something, I don't know if it was the exact number. I heard it was somewhere around 14 quarterback hits, 12 or 14, something crazy like that. The Steelers put so much pressure on Dalton, he couldn't throw the ball downfield. But if you also look at the Steelers defense, where the weakest spot of the Steelers defense, in my opinion, right now in the passing game is the shallow middle. It seems like they've got the outside doing good. Um, on both sides with the corners now, with both Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson. You've got Minka Fitzpatrick, who you did not hear much of last night, which was a good thing because you don't want to hear your free safety having to make all kinds of crazy plays. It's a better game when he's not getting his name called because he's back there doing his job. Didn't hear him, didn't hear Terrell Edmonds. That was good stuff. I know sometimes in the passing attack across the middle, especially on those crossing routes, is sometimes what the Steelers can give up. But I think they're getting better. I definitely think they are. So you got those numbers. You've got, I think it was 175 total yards. I'm pretty sure that the Bengals had. I could add it up here real quick. Yeah, 175 because I know I had it in the article. That was their total offense. Of yards from scrimmage, James Conner and Jalen Samuels together had 208, I do believe it was. But they had just those two players had more yards than all of Cincinnati's offense. Cincinnati had 3 drives of negative yards. That's pretty impressive. So all kinds of great stuff. I like that the 8 sacks, they came from defensive line, outside linebackers, even had inside linebacker because Devin Bush had the first sack. Okay. So it was fantastic, great time. I know I had given the Steelers defense a hard time for being predictable. I felt they were much better at that. They did not, you couldn't sit back and pick them apart because they just had so much pressure. Guys just getting the job done up front. That was one. Two, I was upset with the offense that I felt that they just came out and kind of did the same old thing the week before against San Francisco. Not this time. And of course, you get people out there that are never happy, even after a win. Oh, the Wildcats not sustainable. This isn't an answer for the season. Blah blah. Duh. Yeah, I know. I think we all know that. All I know is this: I don't care that that's not an offense that the Steelers are going to replicate every week. What I care is the offense shows that they will adapt and adjust based on opponent and situation to do whatever they need to do to be successful. That's what I didn't see at all in San Francisco, and that's what I definitely saw last night on Monday Night Football. And that's what I want to see. Now, you might say, well, that Mason Rudolph didn't throw passes down the field, blah, blah, blah. You know why? Because he didn't have to. And guess what? I'm pretty sure I'm going out on a limb here that the Baltimore Ravens are not scouting this podcast right now. That they're not listening in, wanting to know what the Steelers are going to do. I'm really hoping that's the case because I'm really glad that Rudolph didn't throw the ball down the field because he's gone 2 games and not throwing the ball down the field. Do you know what's going to catch the Ravens off guard more than anything next week? Throwing the ball down the field. But we'll talk about next week in a little bit. I am going to open it up to the live chat. If anyone has any numbers they want to throw out, I will now be looking at it. If you put it up there before, I didn't see it. There was one thing I did see up there. Bo, yes, I got your question earlier. Part of the reason we're getting started late tonight is because I wanted to look that up, that I'll talk about that later. So it will be coming. Okay. Here you go. Bill Davis says right there, 24 of 28. That's how you move the chains. Okay. Um, Mark Davison from Down Under, 9-0 versus the Bengals in the last 9 games. And that is, I think, and definitely at least 10 of the last 11. Bo, I'm going to do that question when we talk about next week. That's going to be a good one. Okay. Ali says the Ravens might not be listening, but the Patriots are. That's a good one. That's a really good one. So, Oh, here we go. Ali with another one. How about 0 interceptions for Rudolph? That's great. Now, some people would say that's because he didn't throw the ball down the field or whatever. Okay. Um, I'm not going to look at it like that. I mean, I don't know if you all saw or heard. I don't watch the show, but I saw it on Twitter. Colin Cowherd, the Steelers finally win, and he's like, "Oh, they're done because of what they did to win." I'm like, "I'm sorry. I thought the whole point was to win." And some people were like, "Well, why'd they use the Wildcat on the Bengals?" You know what? You needed your first win. They did what they needed to do to get their win. Now, get in that coaching room, figure out what you got to do for next week. And I have some ideas for that because I had a great conversation with my father who happened to be in town because some of my kids had some grandparent stuff going on today. So my parents came down to visit me yesterday, and so I got to watch the game in on TV with my dad. Both Monday night games this year, I'll be with my dad because we will be in section 122. Um, the next Monday night game against the Miami Dolphins. If anyone's going to be there, let me know. Come around and say hey. All you got to do is look for the helmet. Um, oh wait, I got to get caught back up. Okay, Bo did ask. Getting back with Bo, did Rudolph even get touched? I caught on a replay the post game show, and Stan Savran said that he didn't believe that he even took a hit. That sounds pretty nice. Okay. Here we go. How about Joseph saying 17 straight home Monday night wins in a row? That is a great number. And I say let's make it 18 the next time they play on Monday night because I'm going to be there. Um, I'm just trying to look through. Um, Kevin brought up a really good point. 8 sacks was dominant performance, but no sacks on our side. I laid out those two numbers back to back today on the article. That's a really key thing. Look at the difference in sacks. You got 8, you gave up none. That's that's um that's really good. So here we go. There we go. Ron says 140 receiving yards by running backs. I'm assuming that's I don't know if that's an exact number or not. So I could sit and look it up, but I'm not going to. I did total what I thought was crazy was both running backs had exactly 10 rushes each, and exactly 8 for 8 on receptions each. Now, granted, James Conner got 3 receptions that were really runs because Jalen Samuels threw him the ball out of the Wildcat because he tipped it forward. Now, some of you might wonder, hey, why did he toss it forward? For someone who's not a quarterback that's used to handing the ball, not used to handing the ball off, that's a much easier way for someone. Now you could say it's a little bit more dangerous because what if he drops it? But sometimes that actual handing off, if you're not used to it, it's just easy to do a little flip. So that really does make a lot of sense. So I'm going to try to catch up here before we move on. This was just the numbers from this past week. We're going to talk about some numbers moving forward. Okay, but why not? Why not just kind of sit back and just take it all in from this win? It's been a while. It's been a while because even the last, I mean, think about it. The last regular season win the Steelers had was against the Cincinnati Bengals in Week 17 last year, but that one didn't quite you didn't get to quite enjoy that one because you were needing some help for the playoffs and the help didn't come. And even though it was a win, it was just kind of blah. So the last time I really got to feel like this was when the Steelers beat the Patriots last December. So um, Sammy wants to know if I still hate Deontay Johnson. He did a great job yesterday. I was going to talk about Deontay Johnson some because that's something that I told my father. For those of you that don't know the story of why they claim that I hate Deontay Johnson, you all, if you know Jeff Hartman and Brian Anthony Davis, how they will take one thing and just roll with it. And during the draft, we were communicating a lot. We were doing the podcast afterwards. We were trying to figure out stuff. And before it was announced on TV, Jeff actually texted Brian and I and said, the pick is Deontay Johnson. And I said, who? Because I didn't, Deontay Johnson. I mean, that's a name that's not super. I mean, it's it's not very distinguishable, if you know what I mean. Know a lot of people named Deontay, common last name. I needed some more stuff, and they said, and then he said wide receiver from Toledo. I'm like, oh yeah, the wide receiver from Toledo. I remembered him. I just didn't make the connection with Deontay Johnson. And I said, really? I'm like, did they have to take him here, or could they have taken him with the next one? That's the only thing I ever said about Deontay Johnson. Was I asked is, did they need to take him here, or was he a guy they could have got? Because remember, they had 2 third-round picks, and they just took it off that, oh, Dave hates the pick. He hates the pick. Blah blah blah. I'm like, no, I was just wondering because I mean, come on, even if you like a guy, if you like a guy and you take him in the first round, think about this. This is what people have a problem with from the 2017 draft. The Steelers liked Terrell Edmunds, so they made sure they drafted him. The problem that the Steeler Nation had was, would he have been available with their next pick? Because if he would have been, then why are you taking him with your first? That was my only question about Deontay Johnson. Then, as I researched more on him before we even went on the air that day, I already knew. Guess what? Deontay Johnson, he wasn't going to last till the Steelers' next pick, which wasn't that much later. So that's the story there. I'm going to try to get caught back up there, but that's what it comes down to about hating Deontay Johnson. I've been all over Deontay Johnson. I played Deontay Johnson in my FanDuel last night, did extremely well. Um, I did a small league, of people I didn't know, which I won, and a super large league that I finished very well in. Um, but Deontay Johnson, I thought he was the key. I want to go ahead and say this because this is going to be a good transition from last week to next week. This is what I told my father when he was here. He was asking me about Juju Smith-Schuster. I said, Juju Smith-Schuster is going to have a breakout game in week 5 against the Ravens. This was before last night's game. He's like, why are you saying that? Okay. And my answer was because tonight, which was last night, because in week 4, Deontay Johnson is going to have a breakout night. And Deontay Johnson is going to have a big night against the Bengals. And do you know what that's going to happen? That means the defenses are going to have to pay attention to Deontay Johnson. And guess what's going to happen? Juju is going to now not be the constant focus of everything of the Steelers passing game. But before I go on to next week, let me explain that to you. People's like, where's Juju? Where's Juju? Go back and watch that Deontay Johnson touchdown, that 43-yard touchdown. And they ran a deep crossing pattern between Deontay Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster. There was 3 defenders back there. There was a deep defender and basically 2 guys back on them as they crossed. Do you know what all 3 defenders did? They all went to Juju. They were so worried about Juju that they all flocked to Juju. And what happened? Deontay Johnson, wide open, stop and catch the ball. Probably could have done a cartwheel and right into the end zone. Okay. So, although that was a Deontay Johnson touchdown, if it's not for Juju, he's not going to be that wide open. So don't think that Juju Smith-Schuster is not serving a purpose. And the thing that's great about Juju Smith-Schuster is he has the attitude and the mentality to know that, hey, I'm going to draw this coverage. You're going to get open and you're going to go score. And that's great. And I still say, here comes Juju. Watch it. Here's coming. I'm going to try to catch up real quick. Cree, 0 TDs allowed. Oh, Ron's got a good one. How about 3 straight kneel downs to end the game? Oh, I love the kneel down. That is a fantastic play. And what's funny is you kind of take it for granted until you don't game plan for it. I had an interesting story about that at one point I think I shared. So some people, and I know a lot of people are talking about it, that oh wow, 13-3. I'm not jumping on the 13-3 bandwagon yet right now. So all right, I see lots of good numbers on here. I can't even get to them all. Here, you know what? I'm bringing up the same people. I'm sorry. Cree, once again, 2 solid catches by Vanette. Here's what's crazy. That one penalty right before Vanette's good catch, I say good catch because he had to come back to the ball and go to the ground and get it. Rudolph threw that ball where no one but Vanette could catch it. No one could catch that except for him, which was almost a throwaway, but the receiver made a great play on it. But the reason they were put in a long situation was because they got that too many men in the huddle, and you saw Vanette running off. What it was he's brand new. So he got confused with the personnel, it sounds like, and didn't realize he shouldn't have been on the field. And if that's going to be the one hiccup he had as a brand new player, I will take that. So loving some Vanette, loving some some juju. So so here we go. I'm going to say, let's move on. We're going to talk about this week. And my question was this: the Steelers slowed down the Bengals air attack. Are they ready for the Ravens ground assault? Cincinnati came in with, let's look at some of these numbers. Here's the passing yards for the Cincinnati Bengals the first 3 weeks of the season: 395 yards, 291 yards, 240 yards. Then against the Steelers, 102. Yeah, they took what was their strength and they stopped it. Now let's look at the yeah, I said the Bungles. Let's look at their rushing yards throughout the season. So the receiving yards for the Bengals have gone down every game, and then that big jump down to where the Steelers just shut them down and knocked them around. They had against Seattle 34 rushing yards, San Francisco 25 rushing yards. Then they had 66 rushing yards. They had their most rushing yards of the season against the Steelers, which was 73 last night. Now, I meant to, but I ran out of time. I really wanted to check and say, hey, how many of those rushing yards came in the fourth quarter when the Steelers were almost like, you want to run it now? Go ahead. I know they had at least one run of over 10 yards that I can remember off the top of my head. So you take that away, and they don't have the big rushing attack again. But it kind of seems like the question is the way the Steelers defense set up, are they more set up to stop the pass more than the run? Can they could they possibly just get gashed by the run? The 49ers ran a lot against them. Seattle was fairly successful running against them. Um, I don't even want to talk about week one. That to me, that doesn't even feel like the same team. So the Steelers, although that was great what they did against the pass, and I think that can continue against most teams that they play, what are they going to do to stop the run? So I'm not saying that they can't, and I'm not saying that they won't. I'm just saying that they need to. I'm excited about the Steelers moving forward. Some people are less excited over a win. They wanted the Steelers to tell them what was going on with the season, and they were more concerned about knowing that the Steelers were bad by them losing to the Bengals, so that way they knew. But beating the Bengals pretty good, they feel like it's still more of an unknown. I don't know what's wrong with some people. I really don't get it, that they can't take any joy in the victory. Even one is that decisive. That's the thing. If the Steelers would have won this game 28-27 against Cincinnati, how would you have felt? This was domination. If it wasn't for the fumble early in the game that set up Cincinnati for their field goal, where they only scored 5 yards after they got the fumble, um, they might have been a shutout. Now you have to remember, both of the Steelers' turnovers were also when Cincinnati was in scoring range. The first strip sack, they were in field goal range going down there. They took it away. The other one, yes, it was on fourth down, but so they could have got a field goal there, but the Steelers were up by so much, a field goal didn't help. So that's the big thing that I'm worried about, because let's look at the Ravens' rushing yards so far this season. They have, against Miami, they rushed for 265 yards. Against Arizona, 182 yards. Against Kansas City, still not a great defense, 203 yards. Against Cleveland, who was supposed to be known for this great defense, they rushed for 173 yards. So the Ravens are, I would say they're averaging right around 200 yards a game. Let's see, because that's plus 65, that's plus 68. That's only minus 18. Oh, yeah, they're averaging over 200 yards a game. So the question is, can the Steelers slow down that run game? And what's going to happen is it's going to be tough to tell, because what happens if the Steelers hold them to 125 yards rushing? Is that a win? From a defensive standpoint, I don't know. Bottom line is they're going to have to not just let the Ravens run all over them because, once again, the only stat that matters comes down to the scoreboard. They've got to put more points up on the board than what they give up. I don't care if the Steelers give up 400 yards rushing if they're going to end up winning the game. Okay. Sorry, I just glanced over the live chat and I was told I'm a mathematical miracle. All I was doing was just looking at where it was above or below 200. So that's my numbers. My numbers come down to um, the Steelers. Yes, they only gave up 73 yards rushing this past week, but the Ravens had their worst week rushing with 173 yards rushing. What kind of numbers would that be? Like I said, I don't really care how much they give up as long as it means they're stopping drives, getting stops, and stuff out there. I know there's a possibility of Vince Williams coming back this week. He's very helpful against the run, but I don't know about you all. I thought both linebackers played pretty great last night. Mark Barron seemed to be back to what I was expecting. He was, I said it before, he just felt off against San Francisco. Something just didn't seem right. And as some people brought up with their numbers, Devin Bush, my goodness, his numbers are fantastic. He's like third in the league in in tackles. He's tied for first with with fumble recoveries. He is just getting better and better every week. You know, what do you know? These guys get better that are rookies. Deontay Johnson is looking better. Zach Gentry did not appear to be a liability this week, which was the biggest thing for him in only his second game getting a helmet. Bo had a question that I want to bring up. He actually sent me an email to ask me this question. And the question was it was about running two tight end sets. The Steelers, do they do it? Well, I will be honest. I went through and looked at their sets. This year's kind of tough because things have changed so much. McDonald was out this week. You know, last week you had McDonald and Grimble out for part of the game and all that other stuff. So I thought, let's look at last year. Let's see what they did last year. Last year, out of the 1,051 offensive plays that the Steelers ran, they ran a formation that had two tight ends, 156 plays. That was 14.8% of the time. They ran a three tight end set on three different plays. And I remember some of them because they were some of their better designed plays. So if you look at where they had two or more on the field, it was 15% of the time. So if you're talking about, you know, running running 50 plays in a game, I'm just going to round it off to 50 because that's easy. You're talking about, you know, 8 plays or so with two tight ends. If you're talking about having both McDonald and Vanette, I would see that. I could see that number going up some because I was really encouraged with what I saw. I thought I saw a a Jesse James type tight end, if not more. But I don't want to jump the gun too much. I don't want to say more too much. But he enjoyed his. I mean, listen to him talk was great. He's saying how much fun it is to play in Pittsburgh and win and everything, and he had a blast. He joked with the teammates that he's the only guy that's 2-0 at Heinz Field this year because he was on Seattle when they won there. So I could see them. I don't see a drop off from that 15% if the two of them are healthy. I could see it as even an increase. So there you are. Now, sometimes those two tight end sets last year were also when it was an extra lineman. So we'll see how that plays out. But that is definitely a possibility. I've talked and talked and talked a bunch. I want to know what you guys are thinking about for this week. What kind of numbers? I like to type it in here and say that I'm now paying attention to the live chat and I'm going to look at what everyone says. I want to remind you all, I didn't say it before. If you want your number or your question or anything brought up for sure, you could use the super chat feature. That is, you type in your comment, you hit the $sign, you donate any amount of money to the show. It just kind of goes into the pot for various things, giveaways, things of that sort. And then I'll definitely make sure I'm watching it right here to make sure I don't think I've missed any because they're highlighted on my phone. They're not highlighted on the screen. And There we go. So now I got to start looking back from where I actually typed that in there and pay attention to what you all were saying. So let's see what you all have to say. Okay. So Big Rush says he's worried about 48 and 78, meaning I guess he's saying Bud Dupree and Big Al. Both of them had good nights last night. I mean, sometimes what you want to see from your players is how do they respond to adversity? Uh, that's one thing people were wondering about Dante Moncrief. But he did get a helmet last night, which he did not the week before. He played 3 snaps from the reports that I saw. I didn't even notice him on the field. I didn't know that he played any. So here we go. From Ryan says if Sunday is Juju's breakout game, one is James Washington's. That's the thing. I said that as a prediction before the last night's game. I could even see James Washington's breakout game even coming before Juju's. It could be because that would help Juju. But I'm not sure what's going on with James Washington. I don't know. My dad asked me the same question. For all I know, it could be that now that he drew so much attention from being successful in the preseason, that now he's going against better defenders. It might be that Mason Rudolph is needing to get more comfortable throwing the ball downfield. It could also be that teams know, hey, this is what Washington runs. He only runs deep and that, so we're going to be on it. There's a lot of different things it could be, and I have it specifically broke down his play and his routes specifically to answer that. So we'll see. How about here we go, getting bent with Bo. How many all-purpose yards will Samuels have? I don't know if he's going to have as much this week because I don't think that they're going to run the same kind of deal. I mean, not saying that they won't do the Wildcat at all, but I don't think they're going to do it as much. I love that the Ravens have to plan for it. They've got to spend time now. That's time out of their schedule that they could be using just planning on other things and worrying about this, that, or the other thing that they now have to plan on. What are we going to do if they come out in Wildcat? So that's pretty good. Okay. Um, Here we go. How about Rudolph to Juju for 45 yards? That comes from Caleb. I'd like to see that. Um, Here we go. Someone says, believe Bush gets 2 sacks on Lamar as he scrambles around. That's a good question. It all depends on how they're going to play it, how they're going to scheme that for him to account for him. I don't know that I'm going to say he gets 2 sacks for sure, but I'm going to say for Mark, I'm going to say I think he gets two pretty good shots on him. They might be after a small gain, but I think he's going to come up and maybe get him a couple times. That would be nice. Okay. Big Rush expanded on his. He says 48 and 78 need to be the most consistent, and everyone else will fall in line. I know last week when I guested on The Hangover and I had to say 2 words to describe Bud Dupree, I said consistently inconsistent. I want to see that consistent play from him. I even saw him tracking down outside runs to the other side of the field, even though it's 5 yards downfield. You can't expect too much more from a guy when they're running that far away from you, but he didn't give up at all. Okay. Here we go. Ron says this week, ball control, 35 minutes of offense, and that to keep the Ravens from having the ball enough. I'll take it. I'll take it. The biggest thing for that to happen is that the Steelers are going to have completed passes and successful runs. That's what it takes in order to keep that clock running. Okay. Um, the answer to this is no. This is from Dennis. He wants to know if Jeff gets enough donations to buy 2 jerseys. Can I have the second one? No, the second one goes to me because Jeff and I kind of made a pact of when we were going to get Rudolph um, jerseys. So that's what's going on there. Kevin says something about having a break with Brandon Williams being injured. He's a defensive tackle, I guess, would it be his official role for the Ravens. Um, because possibly going to maybe have a 2-sack day from the Ravens. I don't know that he's going to be out this week. I know he was out this past week, but I heard there's a chance he could come back. We will find out for sure where that's going to be progressing more tomorrow when the injury reports come out. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I see that double HH, sorry, about save Jeff. That was his whole comment from last night, like it was save Ferris. Doesn't want him to sell his kidney because people were making it sound like Jeff was poor last night. Um, but Jeff's all right. Ron says Washington blocking a lot last night. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. There was a couple times on some run plays with Washington where I saw him block his guy out, and this was one of the third downs where the Steelers got blown up and lost a good bit of yardage. That that he was blocking out, and the running back ran out and ran right into the guy that Washington was blocking. Now it might have been because there wasn't successful enough blocking going on the inside, but if your wide receiver's coming across the formation in motion and blocking a guy out, the running back has to go in behind him. If you try to go out in the direction he's blocking him, he's just pushing him right to you, and that's not going to work. And I did see that one time, but I saw Washington getting his face mask in there to do some blocking, and that was really nice. So how did is that Andre? How do you feel about Randy Fichtner's play calls last night? Loved it. Some people are like, oh, the Wildcat is so gimmicky. No, 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 no. He showed that he's willing to do whatever they have to do to adjust in order to be successful. That's what I wanted to see. Anything different, like the flea flicker they ran before, like different formations, like the Wildcat. I don't care who's running it, who's doing what. Show some innovation. I thought that might have been one of his best called games in his 2 years. So someone said about the Ravens shut down Odell, don't expect Juju to have a huge game. The Ravens are actually struggling more in their secondary. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens there. I'm not sure. Um, Someone did bring up with 4 minutes left in the second half, second and 3, Juju was wide open 20 yards down the field across the middle, and Mason dumped it off to Samuels for a first down. Um, I'll be honest with you. If it's second and 3, yeah, that could be a time you take the shot, but I'm not going to fault a guy for getting the first down. So, yeah, one of those things. I know we had a super chat coming up here somewhere. I'm going to find it eventually. Um, I think is coming soon from Caleb. He says, "Do I think we'll see Mason Rudolph go deep to James Washington?" Okay, so all right, I gotta make sure because we only have a few minutes left here. I gotta make sure I get to these super chat questions. So here we go. This is from Chris. He says, "Did you see anything special from Minka's play?" Yes, I saw him not giving anything up to where they felt like they could even do anything in his direction. That's special. When a quarterback won't even go at you, that's special. When the defensive line and the linebackers are making plays and making tackles, and your safeties aren't making a lot of tackles because even in the run game, the runners aren't getting there, that's special. The best thing that could happen for the Steelers is for Minka Fitzpatrick to have a zero stat line because they don't even throw his way and he doesn't have to come up to make a play. That's in essence what happened last night. He was there. Just the threat of him made it harder for them to do anything. And he didn't have to come up and make plays because other people were making plays before he did. It's kind of the whole idea of the one sack last night that I think ended up being Javon Hargrave was it wasn't if the Steelers were going to get a sack. It was who was going to get there first to get it. And because of where he's playing at free safety, if Minka Fitzpatrick does not get a chance to come up and make tackles, that's a good thing for the Steelers because the ball's not getting to him, and that's great. So I love what I'm seeing from Minka. He's just and did it seem like the defense had any problem with communicating or knowing who was doing what last night? Didn't seem to. That's another thing that Fitzpatrick brings. That's something special that I would say that he brings. I got to make sure I got to grab this other super chat question here as soon as I can. As I'm looking for it and I'm looking for it. Oh, here we go. This is from Raymond. This is all caps. He's shouting at us. He said, "I told y'all all we had to do was use the running backs in the passing game like the Patriots. Next game, Washington and Holton need to go deep. They won't expect it." I like it. I like it a lot, Raymond. Thanks for the $5 into the tip jar. Um, I'll take that. That sounds good. Do what they might not be expecting. And it's so funny that and I saw people blow this up on Twitter anytime people said anything about the Steelers' plan of attack last night. Oh, that's not sustainable. Oh, they can't do that. You know what? throwing the ball within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's the Patriots' MO. That's what Tom Brady's done for years. And yet, Tom Brady's so wonderful because that's what he's doing, working the ball, getting the guys open in scheme. You know, Tom Brady's not just constantly chucking it down the field. Now, it's not that he's unwilling to, he just doesn't have to all the time. Once Rudolph shows that he's a little bit more willing to do it, Steelers will be in pretty good shape. So I'm getting a lot of people that are responding to other questions, asking questions. I'm trying to get some of these. I'm trying to skip over some because you guys have been, once again, you guys are great. You're all over it in the live chat, and I love it. Um, Ron, why do I keep bringing up Ron's stuff? But for some reason, it just jumps out at me. Maybe because he's typing my name. But he says our wide receivers found their inner Heinz Ward. That's a good way to put it, especially with James Washington. He did a pretty good job there. Humberto says Ravens are going down. Steelers will win. Here's the deal with this game coming up. Minka Island. Except you forgot the H on Minka. I'm sorry. I don't want to be the spelling police. So here's the thing with this game with the Ravens. No one was really sure who the Steelers were. No one was really sure who the Bengals were. I mean, the Steelers had lost 3 games, but like we'd said, the teams that they had lost to were 8-1 going into the weekend, 10-1 going into Monday. They lost to teams that are good teams. So you didn't really know, are the Steelers really that bad, or were they just playing good competition? You kind of have the same question about the Ravens. The Ravens had 2 big wins early on in the season, but neither one of those teams have won a game that they have beaten. Okay. Cleveland's won 2 games. They beat the Jets, who have not won a game. The only team that either the Browns or the Ravens that have won a game is the Browns beating the Ravens. So in other words, the only person who's lost to an AFC North team that how do I wait? I'm gonna say that wrong. Okay, any team who has lost to an AFC North team that actually has a win is a fellow AFC North team. So in other words, someone had to win that game. So we don't really know where everything's sitting. I think this game with the Ravens coming up is really going to tell what's really going on with the North. It's also going to help tell maybe it'll tell us a little bit about San Francisco. Is San Francisco that good? Because the Steelers are good, but they just lost to San Francisco. It's also going to help to see what they do against not the Ravens, against the Browns. They could do us a favor on Monday night by taking out the Browns. So, guys, it's been a really good show. We've here we go. I'm going to say this because Michael said this. He's like, I see a ton of comments, but only 4 likes. Like the video. I'm not going to sit on here and scream for likes, but it's nice for people to say that to go there. So Heath did bring up the what was up with the offensive pass interference call on Holton. Here's what's sad. That was a really bad call. And if the NFL is going to give you a chance to overturn a bad call, then you got to overturn it. The fact that they even have that as an option to take care of bad calls, and then they still stick with the bad call, I really don't understand. It does really seem like it goes against, I'm not going to say just the Steelers. I'm just going to say against certain coaches. It seems like there's certain coaches out there that no matter what, they're not going to win a challenge. But everyone wanted him to challenge that because everyone thought he was going to win it. Steeler fans talk about Tomlin not winning a challenge. I don't put that on Tomlin. He should have challenged that. They just screwed up. They just screwed up the review. So I got yelled at from Bo for being a grammar Nazi. Trust me, I live with a grammar Nazi, so I am definitely not one. I'm just affected by one. So I'm sorry. Here we go. Andre says, I'm expecting a good Steelers-Ravens rivalry like always. Yes, agree. Okay. So here we go. I'm getting caught up, guys. We're here at the end. I'm going to say something about this that I want to throw out there. I'll probably talk about it more as it gets closer. I actually have some Steelers tickets to some more home games available. Oh my. I just cut out and I had full signal. Okay. I'm not sure what happened there, but I'm back. But I still have my some of my tickets, like I said, which are lower deck end zone. I have the Browns game, I have the Bills game. If anyone would be interested in them, you can just send me an email. I'll put it here in the live chat while I'm still trying to talk. STLR. You guys gotta love that I can't talk and and type at the same time, but that's just kind of the way it is. But if anyone's interested in tickets, um, let me know. Here's the other thing: I actually have 2 tickets to the Rams game, but they're not my tickets. They're actually my brother's tickets, which were the tickets that I had got from him. Him and another friend of mine got season tickets like a week before the season started, and they knew they were going to have trouble getting rid of them. I told them, "Hey, we'll take one game off your hand and do a giveaway." Another game that my brother has is a game that him and I already scheduled to go to ourselves, and that's the Rams game in November. So if anyone's interested, they're like $240 for 2 tickets of going to the Rams game. If you want to contact me about going to that one, I'll even meet up with you either before or after that game. If anyone wants to go and buy those tickets, um, I put my email out there in the live chat for anyone who's wanting to know. You can contact me that way. There we go. Got to put that out there. Double H said, "I'll take 2 tickets for the bye week." I know what you mean. If you've never been to Heinz Field, it takes me hours to get there, but it's worth it. It's just a great experience, and I love it. But um, Humberto says Steelers will go on a 6-game win streak at least. I'm not ready to say that, but the focus right now is Steelers got to start doing is what Coach Tomlin says: got to stack wins, got to stack wins. So let's go and start stacking wins. In order to stack wins, you got to get one. Now you got to get another one. So let's get that win against the Ravens, climb back in even more into the AFC North. I'm trying to remember. Let's see, because the Browns of who they've lost to. Let's see. Yeah, it would really be a big tiebreaker. I was going to say if the Browns lost and the Steelers win, if the Steelers would have one of those tiebreakers, that would come to conference record. It's too early for that. But let's get right back up in there. Um, I would. I'll answer this quick. Um, Dave, how long have you been a Steelers fan? I've been a Steelers fan for as long as I can remember. Because I grew up in the sphere of influence of Pittsburgh, I would call. It's funny because both myself and Brian Anthony Davis and Jeff Hartman all grew up in different states, but we were all in the sphere of influence of Pittsburgh because I was in far western Maryland, where all of our TV and radio was from Pittsburgh. Jeff was from Wheeling, and Brian was from Johnstown. So we were all in that sphere of influence. So I remember as a kid always wanting to, get home from church, lay on the living room floor and watch the Steelers. That's just kind of what we did. Although my dad still likes to tell the story about him and my mom did not see the Steelers' first Super Bowl win because it was the Super Bowl and someone gave them tickets to go to the Penguins game that day. So they went and watched the Penguins while the Super Bowl was going on. But they had the stuff on the big screen and announced it. I mean, this even in the 70s. Okay. So thank you all for joining in. Great show. Lots of great comments. Sorry I didn't get to bring all of them up. But hey, we're happy. It's a great time to be a Steelers fan the day after a win. Don't let those people telling you that it doesn't matter because it's the Bengals get you down. Don't let people say, "Oh, well, it was just using the Wildcat. You're not going to be able to do that all season." No, the Steelers did what they had to do in Week 4 to get a win. Now they just have to do something else in Week 5 to get a win. So let's start stacking those wins. Remember, we're coming at you with podcasts every day. You are dealing with 7 podcasts a week. This week, technically, you get 8 if you started with Sunday because we had to throw in, we had to do an extra one over the weekend, but so we didn't miss one. We doubled up today. We already had the hangover earlier. You had Stat Geek tonight. You'll have the Standard is a Standard tomorrow night. Steelers preview on Thursday. Yeah, I said it Friday. Burning question on Saturday. I'm not sure who the host of that is. For all I know, it's me. Then you'll have a post-game show Sunday, then right back at it again on Monday with the hangover again. And we'll be back next Tuesday with another Steeler Stat Geek. So thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you're checking out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for everything Steelers. You can get everything there. We got 10, 12 articles a day coming out. Lots of good stuff. We're talking about updates for the contest, where we're down to 180 people out of 592. Oh man, if the Dolphins would have won this past week, we would have had like 40 people left. So that's dwindling down. We only got 30% of the people left. We've got my 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 betting articles out tomorrow. That's the BTSC bookie, where I'm taking another little spin, trying to teach people the ins and outs and teach myself the ins and outs of sports betting. So you got a chance to do some fun stuff, community stuff there. Just breaking news, commentary, different perspectives from a bunch of different writers. Some people love what's going on, some people don't. Some people think the defense is great, some people don't. Some people love the trade, some people don't. That's the thing about Behind the Steel Curtain. We're all Steelers fans, but we all see things a little bit differently. So make sure you're checking that out. Whew, it's been a great time. I love it when the Steelers win. So tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. We'll see you all next week.